This year, the government hopes to be rewarded for balancing the books and delivering the first surplus in more than a decade. But what does that mean? What does that mean?
So I'm a professor of economics, and my profession has, in my view, been peddling fake knowledge for years, for decades, and subjecting students in universities, subjecting politicians via policy advice to a mythical version of the world, and which has captured the capacity of sovereign states to advance well-being.
I'm an associate professor at USF. I teach and research in the Humanities and Cultural Studies department, because if you want to do heterodox alternative economics in this country, in our public school system, you have to get out of the economics departments and into other more free-thinking spaces.
My profession is the authority for neoliberalism. My profession is wheeled out and creates smoke screens that the politicians hide behind. And my profession is in charge of all these fiscal councils that have emerged in this depoliticised era. My profession trains people who go into central banks and treasuries and departments of finance. My profession prostitutes itself in the popular media.
Increased debts.
Debt and deficit binge.
We've seen the deficit increase, we've seen debt go up.
The amount of money that this country owes, we cannot keep going the way that we're going.
Every dollar of debt that we paid off over a 10-year period has been reborrowed again.
Through deficit after deficit.
On our debt.
But what does that mean?
Sooner or later, someone has to pay it back.
It's very, very important to eliminate the deficit in current spending.
Particularly in Australia, where we borrow quite a lot from overseas. We're therefore more vulnerable than many other countries.
One of the reasons that Australia then has got such an aversion to debt, which you probably grew up with, Peter Costello and then Wayne Swan and Tony Abbott and everybody complaining about debt, is because it took us 50 years to get over the problems of having too much debt. We're trying to make sure we never do that again.
And that money goes into the welfare system.
We have very modest debt. Our level of debt is the same as a person earning $100,000 a year with a $10,000 mortgage.
The difficulty is for many countries that they have so much debt that when there's some fiscal or monetary adjustment needed, the government's got no space to move it.
But what does that mean?
Because they couldn't pay for their spending.
We need to restrain spending so that we can guarantee ongoing support for Medicare.
Have you got enough revenue coming in to service the debt?
As a result of the strong economy and the government's sound fiscal management, the budget is set to return to a surplus.
A bigger budget surplus each and every year.
We cut government spending back by $30,000 million a year, ipso facto making the private sector $30,000 million a year better off.
Our budget is now in surplus.
To responsibly repair the budget, keeping spending and taxes under control.
And we are reducing the deficit.
And ensuring the government continues to live within its means.
But what does that mean?
If we don't pay it back, what does it actually mean for the children who are just young now?
When you run a budget deficit of $40 billion, as we are this year, for younger taxpayers, who have been paying tax for a lot longer, that implies they're going to pay an extra $10,000 of tax over their lives just to pay back this year's deficit.
And in many ways, the budget you make at home is the same as the one the government will hand down.
Just like families sit around the kitchen table and work through their mortgage payments and discuss their spending priorities, so too the government. You're no longer borrowing on the nation's credit card, and actually you're putting down payments on the debt that has accumulated. And when you have less debt, you have less interest payments, just like any family would with their mortgage.
You would want to have to smooth your lifetime consumption basically as an individual, and sometimes for countries they also need to do things to smooth their debt.
But what does that mean?
That government, no matter what side, get its spending house under control.
No longer on the credit card.
We are back in the black we are back on track.
No longer borrowing money to pay for everyday expenditure.
What does that mean?
The government living within its means.
Saving for the future, saving for the ageing of the population, saving the opportunities of future generations.
To make sure that future generations are not going to be paying the bill, forever.
That's why you need to learn macroeconomics properly, because my profession deals in fake knowledge. And they are propaganda machines.
The reason for deficit reduction was gone. It disappeared. We've run out of money. All these things were over, okay? But they kept fighting the war anyway. And it's kind of the strangest thing. Okay, there's something very wrong with the political process. And I think what's happened is they become victims of their own propaganda.
Such a perverted view of economics and how the economy operates. If you're an outsider like me, it's very hard to become a professor. There's very few professors of economics that have the same views that I have. The vast majority of people that have got to the top of the academic hierarchy are locked into the idea that free markets are self-regulating and that government policy is essentially bad and will distort the market, and if you leave the market, it will deliver the best outcomes. There's very few people that don't believe that in the academic halls of economics. This is groupthink. This works in both academic hierarchies, in central banks, in government departments, in private corporations. And it's sort of like a mob rule. It's very powerful and it's very hostile to different ideas.
Look what happened to me, right? You study the history of economic thought and you start asking all kinds of dangerous things.
Yes.